What's going on, everybody? At long last, I have come to the Louisville Extreme Park in Louisville, Kentucky, right I guess it'd be just east of downtown Louisville. This park is a 40,000 square foot skate park, originally designed by Wormhout Skate Parks or Design Group, whatever they're called, and opened up in 2002. So this park is over 20 years old. And at the time, it was the largest skate park, I think, in the entire United States. That's since been overtaken by the newish skate park in Des Moines, Iowa. But you're going to see a massive skate park tour. A lot of people have been asking for me to do this particular skate park, and I'm going to show you all about it. I'm really looking forward to it because it's actually been probably close to 10 years since I've actually skated here. So it'll be fun. We're going to check out the entire park, do a bunch of roll-throughs. This will probably be a longer video because it's so huge, but you'll see what this park is all about. All right, so to start out this tour video, we're going to start with the vert ramp. And yes, it is a vert ramp. It's probably the first vert ramp I've ever covered in a skate park tour video. And as you can see, this vert ramp is, I want to say, about 12 or maybe close to 14 feet tall. Got about 3 or 4 feet of vert on it. So really your competition size vert ramp, and it's got a couple roll-ins as well as an extension. So if you're a vert skater, this ramp is definitely for you. I can't really talk intelligently about vert ramps because I don't skate them. However, from what I can tell, this vert ramp is really well set up. You do have roll-ins to get plenty of speed and do airs over like the channel and stuff like that. There is coping along the sides of it to keep your board in the vert ramp, and then metal coping throughout. This vert ramp itself has got to be probably about 40 or 50 feet wide, so plenty of room for all kinds of lines, people doing doubles, things like that. So we're going to get up to the top of it so you can see that, but just wanted to start here down on the bottom so you get a sense for just the size and scale of this particular ramp. All right, so as you can see from the top of the vert ramp, obviously a really big scale ramp, or maybe not big, depending on what you're used to. I don't know. Not for me though, and plenty of room to set up for like a channel if you're trying to do tricks over that, or plenty of space on the extension. The extension here is about 1.5 feet tall and 12 feet wide or so. And then you've got a roll-in which adds another 6 feet. So you get plenty of speed on that end. And then obviously you can see the full scale of the rest of the skate park, which we'll get into in just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to start off the street section now and start with something that's a little bit funny to me, and that's the restroom facility. That's not in great shape anymore, and obviously bombed out by graffiti, but graffiti isn't an issue to me. What's really funny to me is the fact that they have this like seating area and they put skate stoppers on it to keep people off of the ledges. Obviously they've been broken off on this side and people are skating this like it's a street ledge. But it's just amusing that they went through the trouble and expense of putting skate stoppers on this particular ledge. But anyway, this ledge is about 14 inches tall or so and runs about 20 feet long. So you do have that as something that's more of a concrete edge to it. Most everything else in the park is going to be metal edge. So this gives you one of the few things that's actually a concrete grind to it. When the Louisville Street Park or Extreme Park was first opened up, it really didn't have much in the way of stairs or gaps to it, just ramps and ledges. So this 6 stair was really the staple as far as if you wanted a gap to jump down, this was your main option. Not intended to be a part of the park, and obviously it's got like traction pads on it for stability and things like that. So had really no purpose specifically for street skating, but it got skated quite a bit back in the day. I remember like jumping down it and stuff when I was like a 13-year-old. But yeah, that is there if you want to skate a true gap, again, to feel more like street style. Next, we're going to cover probably my favorite part of the park, at least in terms of the original section, and that is the manual pads and ledge blocks. So you've got a large mix of different ledges that are super long. They all have metal coping on them. And they range in size from about 6 inches tall going up to like the tallest ledge to get on is probably more like 16 inches or maybe 20 inches. But this lower part here is about a foot tall. So the whole thing skates like a great manual pad. And I'll just circle around it because getting into the specifics is going to be really probably too much to talk about. But you'll see this whole block thing is like, gosh, it's got to be like 70 or 80 feet long. So there's plenty of room to do all kinds of manuals and stuff like that. All right, so you can kind of see, just get a sense for like the manual pads and long grinds. You can even make gaps out of the grinds if you're going to go over the manual pads or ollie up onto stuff. There are little cuts to just even make it so that you can have like little gaps. So you kind of see here, there's like a bit of like a 2-stair or 2-block drop thing as well. The one kind of probably downside of this is they did put this like drainage thing in here that really is all filled with dirt now and doesn't do anything. So it does create like a little bit of a something you got to jump over or jump around. But this taller side of the ledge, you can see you do get that mix of different heights throughout the ledges, going from like a 12-inch tall to a more like a 16-inch tall or so. And then this top part, you do even have about a 3-foot gap or so in between the two blocks. So the point is, there's a ton of different grind, manual combination opportunity with this, and you can skate it from a variety of different directions. Next, I'm going to cover more of the intermediate street skating area. This is a part of the original part of the park, and I'll get down in the bottom of it so you can see it, but I just want to provide a quick overview as well. So you got a mix of like quarters and bowl type of obstacles towards the back. You got a pretty big bank to ledge, nice and wide, Hubba ledges, and kind of more of your like competition style course in the middle towards the back, obviously big rails and ledges, and then some bowl stuff throughout for hips and that sort of thing. So let's get in there and check it out. All right, to start with the part that's closer to I-65 or the bridge crossing, we're going to start with this like 4-foot quarter pipe area that transitions into a taller, about 6-foot bank to ledge. The bank to ledge itself is, I would say, close to 40 feet long. And the bank is really in good shape. Like the cracks haven't really caused too much in the way of issues. I mean, there's some little holes here and there, but for the most part, it's in really good shape. Now the coping is definitely beat up, but the metal's held up really well, so still grinds just fine. And then obviously you can see there are sections where it works a little bit more like a roll-in. So if you don't feel like dropping in or you want to get up more speed to hit another obstacle, you can certainly do that. And there's ways of getting down in here without having to drop in. Now, as I get towards the middle pyramid hip area, first want to point out this big Hubba ledge that's dual-sided and symmetrical. So this thing is about 2 feet tall to get onto. Obviously pretty steep, so it skates like a regular street Hubba, but not quite steep like you'd find it, not as steep as what you'd find in the streets. A little bit more mellow and longer, so you don't feel like you're getting thrown off it and shot straight into the ground like you would on a Hubba ledge on the streets. And then you have the opportunity, because of kind of the curvature of the ramp, a way to get you kind of kicked up on top of it or gap over if you're a really good skater, so you can hit it either as a gap to Hubba or just get on top and ride down. Now you also have a bump to ledge here. This bump to ledge on the top of it's about 6 feet long, 2 feet tall. So if you don't feel like riding down a Hubba ledge, you've got that as an opportunity to skate. And so you can see here on both sides, you do have that those banks that really will kick you up high enough to allow you to hit that ledge or skate the other Hubba ledge on the other side, which is pretty much identical to the one that I just covered. All right, so next we've got out ledge and Hubba. So the Hubba itself is lower than what the stuff in the middle on the pyramids are, but it is longer in terms of an out ledge, about 16 or 18 inches tall, um, and goes out maybe close to 20 feet when you come off this bump. So got plenty of room to do a long grinder slide, which is really nice on one side of it. So um, this will ride backside for a regular footed skater, front side for a goofy footer, and then on the other side of it, um, you kind of have more of that kinked ramp setup where each ramp is about 2 feet tall or so to get up to the 4 foot flat. And it's paired with obviously the Hubba ledge, which creates a little bit more of a gap, or a higher bump if you want to really, if you got some pop and can really come off it. But you also have the double kinked Hubba ledge next to it, which is lower to the ground. But the one probably drawback with this particular Hubba is you do have more of a kink towards the end of it versus just coming straight off. So something to keep in mind if you're wanting to skate this. And by the way, the out ledge piece of it only goes out about 4 feet or 5 feet. So not as long as the other one that we just covered. Before I move into the rest of those bigger street obstacles, I did want to point out the shorter 3 foot pyramid slash kind of hip bump, whatever you want to call it. Basically, you've got a nice hip to turn around on and go into other directions, whether that's to hit the quarters and bowl section or to just do tricks over the hip. Now, this isn't as squared off as maybe what some people would like. It's a little bit more rounded here, but that's okay. Still skates great as far as a hip is concerned, and you got plenty of opportunity to fly over it if you want to do that. All right, now you've got the massive rail. Massive, I guess, is a relative term. It's a big, long, big boy square rail. This thing is about 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall, in various sections. I've seen a lot of people skate it like a bump to rail out, so they're coming towards this end and just kind of hitting the very end of the rail and kind of flying off of it. Other people I have seen go down it, but it's burly, so it's definitely a challenge. Got to have some good rail balance, but the nice thing is because it's square and the top of it's like a 2x4, it is fairly easy to lock into if you've got the confidence to skate something like this. And then next to it, we've got our final Hubba ledge of the original part of the street section. This thing is a lot steeper on the end, as you can see, really kind of has you going straight down. Probably should have been a little bit more mellow in that regard, but it is burlier, it is taller than the others. It's probably more like 18, 20 inches at that end part that you get onto. And so it does end up being a lot harder to skate and maybe a little bit more friendly to BMX than to skateboarders. So now that I've basically covered all of the street elements of the bowls, or now that I've covered all of the street elements of the original part of the park, I'm going to get more into bowls. And so you can see here to start out, we've got a very large corner that's about 5 foot, 5.5 foot or so, and then transitions into some smaller sections. And we'll roll through this, but you can see that this thing is like in itself about 40 feet long or so, and starts to introduce you to the lower, or I guess the smaller parts of the bowls that are more intermediate and beginner. So as we kind of get out of the street area, we'll get into more of an intermediate level bowl area. Now there are some nice roll-ins to make it deeper. So as I roll in here, it's going to stay at about 5 feet tall or so, maybe actually closer to 6 foot. And then you can see that there are parts that stay as roll-ins and then other parts that have coping. So you know, as you get used to this park, you kind of have to figure out where coping exists and where it doesn't, where you have to drop into and where you can just roll in. But there's all kinds of different hips and lines to draw. And this intermediate section will transition, or I guess split off into an even deeper bowl section, as well as a smaller area as well that skates more like a mini ramp. So to get into the deeper section, now I'm going to get into a bowl that's a little bit more like an 8-footer or so. And you can see here, this is just a circular bowl.
Very large in nature. Again, I'll provide an overview towards the end of this, but you see that you've got plenty of space to work with and plenty of lines to draw. And then on the other side of it, we stick with our 6-foot section, but there's a roll in to turn this into more of a 3.5, 4-footer, and skate more like a mini bowl to just get, I think, kids more comfortable with skating transition, and then also to do air outs and things like that if they want to. You do have a roll in as well as a channel for some ways to learn and get better at transition skating. So that's basically completed all of the remaining like original parts of the park. Now there are some flat bars and things like that that I'll cover in a second, but we've really kind of covered everything that's a part of the original part of the construction, and now we're going to get into the phase 2 or redesigned areas, starting with this like fishbowl style snake run that goes from roll-ins to then more of like transition style stuff. So as you can see throughout this, got roll-ins to get into the fish pond section, only about 3 feet tall or so, but this is going to get deeper, and we'll get into something that has more coping section. So it's going to go into like gradually into 4 foot and then 5 foot and get deeper. So starting with a 3-foot section, as you can see, plenty of hips throughout this, but as we start going lower and lower, the transition gets taller, and we finally get to a part that has some coping on it. So see here, like 5-foot quarters throughout, hips and stuff like that, even a spine through the middle here and a back wall to grind on, but basically a 5-footer. And then this back wall section kind of skates like a large gap, so you can actually carve around the spine, hitting the coping on the top, and get up there and find some interesting lines. So got that as an opportunity as well to just get comfortable with transition skating. This one is a lot mellower and more accessible to skaters, so allows them an opportunity to really learn transition skating and get better at it. All right, so now I'm going to circle back to some of the flat ground area / added street stuff. So you can see here we've got a circle rail about 16 inches tall and 20 plus feet long. Kind of bows out a little bit in terms of an S shape, so it does give you some opportunity to learn kind of how to skate that type of thing. And then there's a couple other parking block style slappy curbs, ledges, homemade, not really part of the original design of the park, but you do get that as an option here at the Louisville Extreme Park. And then finally over here towards the end, we've got another circle rail about 12 feet long or so, kind of bows towards the middle there, but starts a little bit higher on one side and a little bit lower on the other. So 12 inches on one end, more like 14 or 16 inches on the other side. But again, about 20 feet long or so. All right, so now we're really getting into the phase 2 of the street area, and they've made it more of a Plaza style, a little bit more modern than the original section behind me. So you'll see a lot of like bank to ledge type of stuff, or just banked ledges that are more like wall ride friendly. And the coping is, a little bit more, I think, in line with what people like to skate these days. But we're going to start out here at the top. So you've got a long rail that skates both like almost like an A-frame. This thing is about 20 inches tall or so, goes down about 20 feet, comes out maybe about 12 feet on the other end. But even though there's a metal piece here in the middle, it is a flat bar or handrail, whatever you want to call it. It's not a Hubba ledge, but the radius of this particular rail is about 2.5 inches or so, I'd guess. And then right next to it, you've got a small little Euro gap to just kind of get used to that sort of skating. So it really kind of kicks you up if you can get the speed to come through here, and really provides that nice like Plaza style skating. To the right of that, or left, depending on which direction you're coming from, you do have a banked wall that you can wall ride and grind the top of. Again, more a Plaza style modern street park. Right next to it, around the corner, you've got a bench set into the wall. The bench itself is probably about 18 inches tall or so and 8 feet long. So it is short enough to wall ride around it if you're carrying the speed. However, I think it will be a little bit challenging because, as you'll see in a second, there's a stair set right there. So probably not the best placement for that bench, just because it's hard to kind of get speed to carve it. But needless to say, still have an opportunity to link some interesting lines. There are a wide variety of interesting little street obstacles kind of mixed in this area, and so I'll try to go through all of them. But starting, as far as interesting stuff is concerned, you've got this little like kicker gap thing. The kickers are about 2 feet tall or so, 4 feet wide, and the gap in between them, I would say, is close to 4 feet, maybe 3, but yeah, 3 feet or so. So really pretty easy to get over, as long as you're carrying enough speed, and it should be no problem coming down from one of these banks. But it gives you an opportunity to either do tricks over the gap itself or jump from one side to the other and hit the coping on the edges of it. So really kind of a nice little challenge to get better as a street skater and have something to gap over. In the middle part of this, there's like another set of ledges, manual pads, whatever you want to call it. So you can see right here in front of me, got about a 6-inch tall manual pad that's about 8 feet long, and then a ledge that's much taller, closer to 16 inches, maybe 18 inches, that you can skate over the manual pad like it's a gap, to get, just a nice longer grind to it. And then that transitions into a couple other features. One is a bigger rail, a lot taller to get onto. This rail is probably about I would say it's about 2.5 feet tall or so to get onto. Probably have to ollie out quite a bit because right at the beginning it's kind of tall. Definitely feels like a regular handrail at the top, but is mellow enough where you really can gap out and get plenty of grinds and slide trick options onto it. And this thing is about 10 feet long or so, and is bent on one end, so you can skate it like a pole jam into the bank if you wanted to. And then on the left side of that rail, you've got a curved out ledge, or bank to ledge, depending on which direction you're coming from. This thing is 16 or 18 inches tall or so, and the whole thing is got to be close to about 30 feet long. So you can see it kind of curves around a bit to match the curvature of the park. So this middle section here is probably where you feel the most curviness of it. Square angle coping, of course, but that little curvature, I think, makes it a little more interesting. It's not so intense where you feel like you're going to just like unlock on your grinds every time, but yeah, it's cool. On the other side of the down rail, you've got a nice, long, tall Hubba ledge, super mellow, bit tall to get onto, probably close to 2 feet tall. But it slopes down about 20 feet long or so. So it gives you a really long grind throughout. And you can also hit it like a bump to ledge as well towards the end and get some interesting tricks off of it. So really a multi-directional object, which really is a nice thing to have at parks like this. I'm doubling back to where I was at originally with the wall ride bench thing, and we're getting back to the next part of that section. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about this forest stair. You do have a wall ride that is front side for regular footed skaters, backside for goofy if you're going down the street section. You've got a much smaller circular rail that skates on one side like a bump to bar, and then on the other side like a small handrail to learn on. And then the forest stair, of course, provides a little bit of a gap. Like I said towards the beginning of this video, there weren't any stair sets really incorporated into the park originally, so now there are some more gaps for kids to skate. And then on the other side, of course, you've got just a really mellow, probably 2 foot bank or so that's about 8 feet long. with a Hubba ledge that's nice, long, and mellow. You can skate it in either direction. However, it is about 2 feet tall or so to get onto. It is kind of tall. Again, super mellow, but you can skate it like a bump to ledge as well. Now on the left side, or the side that's closer to the original section of the park, you've got a really steep set of transition that's only about 3 feet tall. But the radius on these quarters means that it has almost 5 or 6 inches of vert on it. So this thing is really steep, and you can see where it starts as just the regular bank and transitions into more of a bold quarter. Frankly, I don't really get the purpose of this other than to, I guess, just to have a steep quarter pipe, but seems a little weird. I probably would have just put a roll in on this side if it were me, but is what it is. And then behind that, you've got a small little hip that's only about a foot or a foot and a half tall, but allows plenty of like air opportunity over it, as well as skating like a bump to ledge on this long 2 foot tall out ledge that's maybe about 30 feet long or so. So really gives kids a great opportunity to learn how to skate a little hip, even the old guys like me, a chance to just do some fun flip tricks and stuff like that on any, in the middle of the line or elsewhere. All right, next we've got a really interesting double set. So the double set is super long as a gap, but is doable if you're carrying enough speed down through this area. But it's a 3 flat 3. The stairs themselves are not, they are definitely longer than what you'd find as far as regular stairs are concerned. This whole gap itself has got to be close to 10 or 12 feet long or so. So it is pretty lengthy. The good news is you do have a Hubba ledge that you can skate on either side. The Hubba ledge to go onto is about 2 feet tall on one side. It's lower on the other side, but kind of mellow, nice long slope to it. And then on the other side, you've got a wall ride opportunity. Nice graffiti wall too, but that wall ride has definitely provided some interesting line opportunities, particularly if you're goofy footed, since it'll ride backside. It's probably pretty doable. We've also got this like kind of almost like a manual pad of sorts. It's a bank to ledge that ends kind of in the middle of the actual bank, but it also is sloped downward. So it's only about 6 inches tall where the top part of the actual bank starts. But it drops off in the middle, so it kind of skates like almost like an out ledge drop, or you skate it like a bank to ledge. Really kind of interesting obstacle manual pad thing. You know, I think it just adds some variety to the park and keeps things interesting instead of sterile. But some people probably don't like the fact that it just ends in the middle of the bank. I think it's fine. It's cool. I like it. All right, we've got a few more street obstacles to cover in the phase 2 build of this park. First is this really large pyramid, all kinds of different line opportunities coming from different directions. Super mellow, of course, but there's lots of different hips to this. I think there's probably, let's see, maybe 7 or 8 different hips built into this, like, you know, we'll just call it a polygon shape on the top of it. So there's lots of ways in which you can draw all kinds of lines to skate this, and it's only about a foot and a half tall or so. So it does give you plenty of flip trick opportunities, ollies, whatever, probably even air over it if you wanted to. And then we have, I think this is maybe more intended to be like just, you know, visually interesting more so than practical from a skate perspective. But you've got this set of 7 different quarter pipes that are all about 4 feet wide, but have 1.5, 2 foot gaps in between them. So they all are of varying heights and some of them have oververt. The lowest ones are about 5 feet tall and they don't have any oververt. But as they level up about 2 feet each time, they start adding vert and then oververt, and you can see how these sort of hook around a little bit to just provide, I think, an interesting visual element. But the nice thing is there is opportunity to hit the coping if you really want, but gap in between these I think is probably the more likely opportunity, and I think it's just another way of adding variety and giving people something interesting to skate. Now there are some bigger level street stuff on the northern end of the park. I'm going to start at the bottom and then work my way up, but you can see here you've got a big 3 block as a gap, and then a really wide pipe flat bar thing that skates like an outledge. So this is pretty gnarly, I think. I'm sure there's plenty of people who've done it, but this top part probably goes out about 12 feet or so before you get to the end of it, and ends up being about a 5-foot drop at the end. So this tube, we'll call it, basically gives you a flat bar that comes out. And you could also skate it as a bank to rail if you come up this slope. However, I will say that getting the speed to come up the slope might be a little bit tricky. You do see that you got more wall ride banks throughout, which is nice. I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of those, but you can see how there's all kind of wall ride opportunity, and they have coping across the top if you feel like grinding them. But you've got another 3 block gap as well as a squarish handrail. Obviously a lot taller if you're skating it from the 3 block side, and not a lot of opportunity or time to set up for another trick if you're going to come down that rail, but you do have that as an option. Nice and long. Again, about a 2x4 on top of it, probably about 2 feet or so to get onto. So burly, but doable. The last street obstacle before we're all done with street stuff is this manual pad ledge. The ledge is about 12 inches tall, 12 feet long or so you can skate it just as a normal ledge to incorporate into your lines, or as a manual pad as well, right next to the fishbowl that I covered earlier. We've made it to the final